Hello everyone, I'm recording this just before I go on vacation. And if you're watching this, you're about to watch a little summer short, a little cutout from one of the live streams that has not previously been shown on YouTube. I have some nice summer hair ready for going out into the 5 minutes of summer that Sweden provides. That's a downside of living in Sweden. I'm gonna release one video in the beginning of the week, this one, and you're also gonna get a second one a little bit later in the week. If you're gonna be sort of working this summer and learning some React hooks maybe, you're gonna appreciate this week's sponsor. It's Tyler McGinnis. Let me read you their pitch. Tyler McGinnis launched their first React course in 2016 and it's now been taken by over 80,000 students with an average rating of 4.8 out of 5. Their brand new React and React Hooks courses just launched and will teach you everything you need to know about writing React in 2019. If that is something that is interesting to you, use the link in the episode description when you get the course so that they know that you came from here. Thank you so much, Tyler McGinnis. Now on to the clip.
What does my day-to-day work look like? What is my tech stack, or what is your favorite project you've ever worked? So I can't necessarily speak about specific things necessarily. My day-to-day work sort of looks like whatever it needs to. There was a call that I had at the end of the day with somebody in another department at my company that said, "Hey, this other highly technical individual who usually does architecture pre-sales had to be at another client. Can you show up 2 cities over at 9 in the morning and
Good Lord.
cover this? By the way, here is the request for proposal, and here is the slide deck that we're using, and see what you can do to memorize that." And I said, "Of course I can. I will see you at 9:30. So my day-to-day sort of changes based on the day. The current the current project is pretty steady. It's a website, and I guess we're using Gatsby and Netlify for hosting, and we're touching Ghost and a couple of other things that we're integrating with. Prior to that, Angular. I've done trainings in Angular. I've done a little bit of Vue, and then whatever the client is running. So there's a client that we had that had some C#, C# 2 or C# 3, I guess.
What is C# on nowadays?
8.
Oh my lord.
I think.
Yeah, I think that I coded C# 3 way back in the day.
Yep.
That's interesting. Yeah, so how do you deal with when you approach a very old code base like that? I remember one time where I'm a person who I'm vehemently against rewrites. I think that programmers reach for the rewrite tool way too fast, and just leads you into this situation where you're maintaining 2 code bases at the same time, which is horribly expensive and could possibly not be worse than refactoring the whole code base. However, I ran into one case where there was an absolutely mission critical little app that processed database rows in a catalog company's. It was the pipeline for getting from order to the actual printed catalog. This was quite a while ago. And
Right.
it was a little binary, that did this, and the source code for it was lost.
Mm-hmm.
But I had the binary, so what I did was I just fed it like a ton of different database rows, and I just reverse engineered it from that. Just wrote a unit test for every single thing, and then eventually I just gradually ran it against the output files as tests, and just figured out one error by one error until I had it figured out. It for legacy code project, it was the most fun I've ever had. It was like solving some kind of obscure game problem. Gradually, extremely satisfying, really.
Yep. It all depends. So some of that reverse engineering, but usually when I hear rewrite, I will frequently feel the urge to rewrite many times, but the urge comes from usually people baking too much stuff inside of functions rather than outside of functions. So if the whole system is engineered in such a way that you've got an if followed by a for loop, followed by a switch, followed by an if, followed by a for loop, and then you have written your code in here, then when you're asked to modify that, I'm just going to copy everything at the switch case, and I'm just going to move that into an if-else, and then rewrite the one line that actually changes in this if case. And I've seen a few 30,000 line long files that go that way. And it's usually at that moment where I feel I should rewrite this, and then I do, and it turns out that it's 500 lines of code.
Yeah.
And 30,000 lines of burying the actual code.
Ronin asks, what do you mean by baking stuff inside of function versus outside of functions? Do you feel like that answered your question, Ronin, or can we elaborate more on that? Was that sort of what you explained? Not really sure.
It's so it extends a little further than just logic. Cool.
Yeah.
So it also extends into dependency inversion in general. So rather than importing your database into the file that you're using and then not being able to test the file because it only works on the production database, you should expect to construct a thing which takes an instance of a database or takes a repository that wraps the database so that you don't have to care that it's a database. And I'm not saying that you should do this for every to-do app, but when you're dealing in larger enterprise applications where you expect there are going to be a whole lot of people working in this code, setting up those boundaries where you can prove that I pass a test version of this user getter into the service that gets users, and the right thing happens. Versus 200 people have made commits to this 30,000 line file that calls to the production URL to get users, and then transforms it by the time it gets to the React layer.
It's great as long as it works, and then it's very, very hard to hunt down something in that.
Yep.
Oh, foreplay.
says, at work we had a large legacy Java 1.3 application that our team inherited. The deployment took several hours and had to be performed during the night. The way it was set up, it was not possible to perform a rollback. Good times.
Yep, I love those.
Oh, I love the war stories. Yeah, it was. I had like worked at this consulting company that in turn worked for a very large beverage organization, and they had this this huge deployment thing that like that they had in order to like ensure that nothing went wrong, and it was kind of like just adding security upon security upon security until it really didn't make sense. So they had like a test, and then they had a staging, and then they had a staging 2, and then they had production, and I think there was something in between those two as well, and they had somehow rationalized that this was sensible, and we were referring to the deployment system as launching the spaceship, because there's so many insane amounts of steps, and there was these f-sync scripts involved, like had to like get the right files, and like wow, Git deployments is such an incredible step forward to what we used to have.
Yep. There were, and I think all of this ended up speaking to my love of functional programming later down the line, but there were one company that I worked at had 3 major servers to serve most of the world, and so when it deployed through SCP. They would SCP files to each one of these servers, and it was to the point where, you could copy the files from one server to the from wherever you were deploying to each server, but the servers could not, under any circumstance, come down because we couldn't get them to rebuild successfully. And it was at that point before I even joined the company. But so there's a fun bug. There's a fun bug that happens when you make your server work through only copying files over onto the server, which is to say that it doesn't account for any files that you have deleted.
Oh. God.
Statefulness is bad.
It is. If it's anything that we have learned from in the last 10 years, it's that the more state you have, the more problems you have. Up until
more state, more problems.
Sure, but then again, if you don't have any state, then you
don't have a product.
No, exactly. You're just your computer is just turning warm.
Well, I mean, in my case, the lights are giving it a run for its money.
Yeah. Yeah, Ronin says, I may or may not have done that SCP deployment process back when I was a sysadmin, before I really understood anything. But I mean,
oh boy.
Yeah, but I mean, it's fine, the industry learns. I mean, I developed things before Subversion sort of was a thing. Version control reached the industry around the time when I was started to work in professional programming, and there was also Subversion, which was a huge improvement on top of what's it called, source safe. That was just so hard. You would check files out, and then nobody could move them, touch them. So you would have to go over to people and ask them to check in the files before you did things.
Yep. The earliest form of version control I used was sending out emails to say nobody else touch the index file on production, I am editing it right now.
That's lovely. We also had I had a colleague who worked at a mobile phone company that shall remain unnamed, and he was a consultant there, and he had this tech lead there that he was interacting with. And so this was a tech lead, so this was not like some manager person who's not like, this was an engineer. And this engineer told him very sternly, like in a fatherly kind of fashion, is that you don't use version control on real projects. He considered like version control to be like this newfangled thing that like it was just this academic bullshit that somebody has like decided it's like that people should use for an illusion of security, but in practice it was just like this extra work that didn't pay off.
Yep.
So like as an industry, we definitely move forward and like find things to constantly make us better. And I don't think that we should be ashamed of the people we are. I think we should be proud of how far we have become, how far we come.
And that's really it. It's learning, and sometimes it's learning through you being the person that burns your hand on the stove, and sometimes it's learning through having somebody who's been there saying, "Oh, don't touch that. That's kind of hot," or in worse cases, actually the one that I prefer working in these days is, okay, you can touch the stove, just don't juggle the chainsaws. Leave that to me.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, Tyler McInnes. Link in the episode description. Really good React hooks course, among other things. You watched a little clip from a live stream. If you want to check out us live, you can do so at twitch.tv/funfunfunction. We're not streaming right now, but we will start doing that after my summer break. So make sure you go there, twitch.tv/funfunfunction, and hit that little follow button so that you'll get a notification in the Twitch app when we go live next time. If you want to watch some more clips showing what FunFunFunction is about, click this playlist here, or if you're ready, just click subscribe here if you already sold. I am MPJ, don't miss the clip next week.